The Squire's Tale, Part 1. At Tarzev, in the land of Tartary, there dwelt a king at war with Muscovy, which brought the death of many a doughty man. This noble king was known as Cambushcan, and in his time enjoyed such great renown that nowhere in that region, up or down, was one so excellent in everything, nothing he lacked belonging to a king. As to the faith in which he had been born, he kept such loyalties as he had sworn. Then he was powerful, and wise and brave, compassionate and just, and if he gave his word he kept it, being honorable, the same to all, benevolent and stable, as is a circle center, and in fight as emulous as any squire or knight. Young, personable, fresh, and fortunate, maintaining such kingliness of state, there never was his match in mortal man. This noble king, this Tartar Cambushcan, begat 2 sons on Elfeda his wife. The elder bore the name Algarsif, the other son, the younger, Camballo. He had another child, a daughter though, youngest of all. Her name was Canace. To tell her beauty is too much for me, lying beyond what tongue of mine can sing. I dare not undertake so high a thing. My English is too insufficient for it. It asks a rhetorician to explore it, a poet in the colors of that art, to give a fair account of every part. I am none such. I speak as best I can. Now it so happened that when Cambushcan had borne his diadem for 20 years, as was his usual custom, it appears, he had the feast of his nativity proclaimed throughout the land of Tartary. It was the Ides of March in the new year. Phobos, the sun, shone happily and clear, for he was near his point of exaltation in face of Mars, and there he held his station in Aries, and that's a sultry sign. Cheerful the weather, vigorous and benign, and all the birds against the sunny sheen, what with the season and the early green, sang the loud canticles of their affection, for, as it seemed at last, they had protection against the sword of winter, keen and cold. This noble Cambushcan, of whom I told, sat on his dais in a royal robe, high on his throne, with diadem and globe, and there held feasts in all his power unfurled, and there was nothing like it in the world. If I should pause to tell of his array, the task would occupy a summer's day, nor is there any need I should enforce attention to his banquet, course on course, or number the quaint dishes they put on, the heron chick, the richly roasted swan, for in that country veteran knights report there are some meats esteemed the daintiest sort, though in this country their esteem is small. But there is none who could report it all, so let me not delay you. It is prime of day. It would be fruitless loss of time. Let me retrace my footsteps to their source. It happened close upon the second course, as the king sat with his nobility, listening to instruments of minstrelsy that made delicious music in the hall. Suddenly at the door, in sight of all, there came a knight upon a steed of brass, bearing a mirror, broad and made of glass. Upon his thumb he had a golden ring, and at his side a naked sword a-swing. And up he rode and reached the royal table. In all that hall not one of them was able to speak a word for wonder at this knight. They waited, young and old, and watched the sight. This stranger knight, so suddenly presented, bareheaded, armed, and richly ornamented, saluted king and queen and nobles all, in order as they sat about the hall, with such deep reverence and comely grace, not only in his speech but in his face, that Gawain, ever courteous, ever bland, though he were come again from fairyland, a greater courtesy could not have shown, And thus, before high table and the throne, he gave his message in a manly voice, in his own language, with a perfect choice of phrase, faultless in syllable or letter. And that his story might appear the better, gesture and word were fitted each to each, as taught to those that learn the art of speech. And though I lack his talent to beguile, and cannot climb over so tall a stile, I say, as to their general content, the words I use amount to what he meant, so far as I can trust my memory. The King of India and of Araby, who is my sovereign lord, this solemn day salutes your majesty as best he may, and sends you here in honor of your feast, through me, who am your servant though the least, this steed of brass, that easily may run within the natural circuit of the sun, that is to say, in 24 hours, wherever you may wish, in drought or showers, and bear your body to whatever place your heart desires at a gentle pace, and without hurt to you, though foul or fair. If you should wish to fly and mount the air, as does an eagle when it seeks to soar, this very steed will bear you as before, in perfect safety, on your chosen track, though you should fall asleep upon his back, and when you twist this pin, return again. He that devised it had a cunning brain. He watched through many a change of constellation, ere finding one to suit his operation, and he knew many a magic seal and spell. This mirror that I have in hand as well is such that those who look at it may see the coming shadow of adversity. Upon yourself and kingdom it will show you plainly who is friend and who is foe. More than all this, if any lady bright has set on any man her heart's delight, if he be false witness, she shall perceive his shady and treacherous conduct, and the other lady. So openly nothing will hide his treason, and so against this lusty summer season, this mirror and this ring are sent by me, as you behold, to Lady Canice, your excellent and lovely daughter here. The virtue of the ring, as will appear, stands in this point: if she be not averse to wear it on her thumb, or in her purse, there is no bird that flies beneath the reach of heaven, but will understand its speech, and know its meaning openly and plain, and in its language answer it again. If every rooted grass that grows on earth, she shall have knowledge too, and test its worth in sickness or on wounds, however wide. This naked sword here, hanging at my side, retains the property to cut and bite the armor of whatever man you smite, though it were thicker than a branching oak. And when a man is wounded by its stroke, nothing can heal him till the sword is laid in mercy flat upon the wound it made, where he is hurt. This is as much to say, lay the blade flat, turning the edge away, and stroke the wound, and you will see it close. This is the very truth in sober prose. While it is in your hold, it cannot fail. The stranger knight, having told his tale, rode out of hall, dismounted, and had done. His steed of brass, that glittered like the sun, stood in the courtyard, still as any stone. They gave the knight a chamber of his own, unarmed, and feasted him. And in a while his gifts were carried forth, in royal style, that is to say, the mirror and the sword, and brought to the high tower under ward of certain officers appointed for it. As for the ring, in solemn pomp they bore it to Canice herself, who sat at table. But I assure you all, it is no fable. That horse of brass could not be raised or slewed, but stood its ground as if it had been glued. It was of no avail to drive or bully, use windlass, engine, artifice, or pulley. But why? Because they didn't know the dodge, and so they were obliged to let it lodge below until the night had shown them how to shift him. You shall hear it, but not now. Great was the crowd that swarmed about in force, to gaze upon the stationary horse. It was as tall, as broad, and of a length just as proportionable to its strength as any courser bred in Lombardy, quick-eyed, as horsely as a horse can be, like an Apollon steed, as highly bred, and I assure you that from tail to head nothing could be improved by art or nature, so they supposed at least who saw the creature. But yet the wonder nothing could surpass was how it went if it were made of brass. Some thought it came from fairyland's dominions. Various men gave various opinions. As many heads, so many fallacies. They murmured round it like a swarm of bees, and guessed according to their fantasy, or quoted snatches of old poetry, saying it was like Pegasus of old, the fabled horse that flew on wings of gold, or it was Sinon's horse, by whose employ the Greeks had brought destruction upon Troy. As one may read in those old epic tales, said one of them, My spirit fairly quails to think there may be men of arms within it, plotting to take our town this very minute. It would be well if such a thing were known. Another, whispering to his friend alone, muttered, He's wrong, more like some apparition or trick illusion made by a magician, like what these jugglers do at feasts of state. Thus they kept up the jangle of debate, as the illiterate are wont to do. When subtler things are offered in their view than their unletteredness can comprehend, they reach the wrong conclusion in the end. Some wondered at the mirror and its power. It had been taken to the master tower, and how such things could be foreseen in it. Another said that such a thing could fit quite naturally by the skilled direction of angles, by the laws of light reflection, and said there was another such in Rome that referred to many, by a learned tome, by Aristotle, and by Alhazen, and Whitlow, and other learned men, who when alive had written down directives for use of cunning mirrors and perspectives, as anyone can tell who has explored these authors. Others wondered at the sword that had the power to pierce through anything, and spoke of Telepas, the Mysian king, and of Achilles and his marvelous spear, able to heal no less than it could shear, exactly like this sword, that at a word could wound a man or heal him, as you heard. They spoke of sundry ways of hardening metal by various ointments, and they tried to settle the times and methods for this mystery, which are unknown at any rate to me. And then they spoke about the magic ring given to Candace, a marvelous thing, concluding thus, None such, as one supposes, was ever known, but Solomon and Moses were said to have been cunning in that art. Thus people spoke in little groups apart, and others said how strange it was to learn that glass is made out of the ash of fern, though bearing no resemblance to the glass, but being used to this, they let it pass. The argument declined, they ceased to wonder, like those who speculate on what makes thunder, ebb, flood, or mist, how gossamer is blown, or anything until the cause is known. And so they guessed and judged as they were able, until the king began to rise from table.